Hey everybody, we are here for a art stream. So, yeah. e. So this is basically the file that I have that is my main set for Star Trek Endurance. I'll go over here and turn this on. You can see what this is it's got text, the UFP logo, it's got this little sine wave that does actually animate. But what I want to do is I want to make a countdown. So that way we can see how long the stream has until it actually starts up. When we first go live, people have an idea that, yeah, we are ready, but, we are going to give ourselves a few minutes for setup and any final mic checks or anything like that. So that is the goal here. You might want to take a look at the actual construction here. So this is, switch it over to here. So you see, we've got this right here, the sine wave, is actually a line of lines of slightly varying lengths, and they just rotate around like that. The way that works is basically got this tree here. Basically, it takes a line, says, okay, give me 123 points on that line. Set the rotate the line according to the line factor times a number. And then that's applied by the frames times -4 to give it a speed. It's lots of math. And then also, we have some stuff that rotates the points along so that they are all offset from each other, and all of that adds together to make a line full of lines offset from each other that itself rotates. Which, like, yeah, okay. This is just an array of numbers, so basically we set up some points, we set the position of the points across the y-axis, we duplicate, sorry, we duplicate the points, we offset the points across the x-axis, we duplicate those points and then separate them across the x-axis again to get different blocks. And then there's a whole complicated set of like splitting them off into random numbers and whatnot, all of which just ends with a thing that drives the seed, and there we go. The rest of this is pretty basic. It's actually just regular old geometry. So if I go to the layout here, like these are just like regular old boxes with like horrible topology, but that's okay because they're not like deforming or animating. A lot of just hanging text in the middle of nowhere. And then this is a LCARS material that I have that basically just what it does is it takes each separate bit of geometry, assigns it a random number, then I change that random number with a white noise so that I have control over it, so I can do things like this to change colors. And then that just feeds into a color ramp where each random number is along from 0 to 1 is assigned a color value based on color values picked from the show lower decks, which is about the time frame that we're doing. So that is what is going on here. So the first thing we're going to do is, I don't want this. Well, first, actually, we're going to save. Okay. This is going to be Endurance Stream starts soon. All right, so now I can't bother the original file. So, okay, I don't want this. So all this stuff is going away. Now I have some reference material that I'm going to use. Let's see. Saving. Brilliant, says Metageeky. Yeah, I mean, not wrong. So I have some reference material on the other side I want to take a look at. And we're going to make like a 4x3 grid that I think we're going to subdivide into smaller grids and place in the middle. I also don't really want this guy, but I'm not sure that I don't want it, so I'm just going to hide it and hide it from the render because I might want it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to add in, doesn't really matter because this is just going to be the basis for some geometry nodes, right? So we're going to call this guy spatial grid. All right, and we're going to add in, I don't actually want this input here. We're going to add in a grid, which, yeah, that makes sense. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is mesh to curve. That will take the grid that originally existed, get rid of the faces, and say, okay, each grid segment is now going to be a curve, which is going to be handy later. So the next thing I want to do is position this in a better location. We're going to increase this. I don't want to keep it a square, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this is going to be 2 by 2. Then I'm going to increase the x size to 3. Up this. So yeah, we get a, but I wanted a 4, so yeah, okay, so let's see. Ooh. Turn off all the, yeah, that's about what I want. All right, so we can worry about the size later. That's one thing. Next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to subdivide this. Subdivide this mesh. We're going to put a mesh to curve. And I'm going to put a join geometry so I can see both of them at the same time. Okay, so this is subdividing it once. I want it like this many times. No, that's too many. All right. Yeah. We're going to put this just about here. This section here on to the right of that is going to be where the number goes. This is going to be a cool little animation that's going to be like we're scanning something. Landon Knoll comes in and says, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending, or sorry, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone and latitude and artistic mood for your astronomer. From your astronomer guide to our favorite universe. Hello, Top Hats Off. Hello, Landon Knoll. Good to see you. All right, so here's where we make this a little bit easier to figure out what we're doing. So we're going to do a curve to mesh. You might be like, why? You just turned it from a mesh to a curve? That's because this allows me to basically turn each of these curve segments into a little tube. We're going to add curve circle. Curve circle. I don't need 32 points around the circle. That's way too many. I'm going to put it to like 12. And this is going to be way too big, so we're going to put this to 0.02 and see how it looks. All right, so that highlighted the bits there. So I actually like that thickness there. Maybe it's a little bit thick. Let's try 0.015. Yeah, it's a little better. All right, so then we're going to just duplicate this. But we're going to turn this down to, let's see, 0.075. Come on. Can't use my board here. All right. So, and then we're going to get this guy. All right, so that gives us some thicker and some thinner lines here, which actually still might be a little bit too extreme on how thick these guys are. So let's turn this down to 0.005. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay, so now we have a grid divided into subgrid units. Awesome. That is what I want there. Okay. So that gives us that. The next one we're going to do, we're going to make a new material for this guy. We're just going to slide this over, grab the shader editor. First, I'm going to click on this, and I want it to be this color here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this, and I am just going to, let's see, copy. Yep, there it is. There's the hex code. Copy the hex code. So I actually recently updated Blender, so I'm not familiar with all of the changes. So it used to be the hex code was a separate tab in there. Oh, why did I do that? That was stupid. All right, so I'm going to create a new material. We're going to call this grid. It's going to be a emission shader. Just going to do this. That's all it needs to do. Then we're going to set material, and we're going to type in grid, and we're going to see how we like that. Okay. Render mode. And yeah, that's pretty good, actually. I think that'll work. Okay. You want it to be this lighter orange color? I might want that. Okay. Let's see how that goes. So what I'll do is, oh yeah, go to the shader editor and grab this color. That back to 0.4. So let's try this one. Yeah, okay, I think I like that a little bit better. Okay, cool. So now what I want to do is I want to scatter a few little objects behind this so it looks like there is a like a field of like asteroids or stars or something that we're picking up. Doesn't really matter what they are. So I'm gonna switch to this here just so I can see what I'm actually doing in 3D. And we're just gonna keep it inside this object, right? Because it's the whole of our grid. So we're gonna do most of this stuff with a bunch of geometry nodes inside this grid. If you have questions, please ask them. You know, you can super chat, but you absolutely do not have to. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a we're going to take this grid again, and then a reroute node there. All right, and so what I want to do, I want to push it lower. I'm going to put in a transform geometry, lower it a little bit, and we're going to put in a new join geometry. It's after because I don't think I'm going to want to have it be the same material. Okay, so now we have a plane that when we look here, it's exactly the same size as our original grid, so it will exactly fill this because it's being taken from this grid. But then what we're going to do is we're going to put distribute points on faces, which will then replace that plane with a number of points that are randomly scattered. Now, we're going to switch this to Poisson disk so we can set a minimum distance that they can be apart, which we're going to set at 0.1, see how that looks. Yeah. We're also going to reduce the max density because I don't want that many. And we're going to take a look at the seed here. Okay, I like that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, it's a little weird, I'm going to put in a, this part isn't going to be weird, so let's see. I want a instances on points, and then we're going to put in a curve circle, and we're going to reduce this to like 8 points. So what we're going to actually see is octagons. Well, we're going to see octagons when I actually bother to turn them into. There they are. There they are. Bunch of octagons. Way too big, though. So what we're going to do is, one, we're going to turn this down. So our radius is going to be 0.1, which is pretty good. Then we're going to put a random value here on the scale. And so we're going to put that, yeah, 0 to 1 seems fine. Okay. Then I'm going to put another random value. This is going to go, I'm going to put these to 0 because I only want it to rotate on the Z axis, which is our vertical axis, which is the one that's basically hidden because it's the one directly that we're looking along. But I want it to be able to go in 360 degrees. Now the thing is, this vector input that we got here on rotation, this says degrees, but this right here is actually using radians. And so when I plug this into here, internally it will convert between radians and degrees. That still means that I need to put this in radians. So if I want to have full 360 degree rotation with randomness, that means I need 360 degrees in radians. And 360 degrees in radians is just 2 pi radians, or tau radians. I plug that in here, and now these are all randomly aligned, but that's a little bit too small, and that's because we have this set to 0, 0. So 0.06 seems fine. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to, sorry, I got one of my noise canceling tiles threatening to fall down. We are going to realize instances. So right now, all of these are being stored as basically the same object, just scaled and transformed differently. And that saves a whole lot on computing power, but it means that any change I make to any of them the identical change happens to all of them. But I don't want that. I want them to all be separate. What realize instances does, it says, hey, stop storing these as just copies of one piece of geometry, and instead start storing them as separate pieces of geometry, all of which can be affected differently by different effects. It doesn't visually change anything. It's just something that happens in the computer. Okay, so now we're going to put a set position node. This is going to be me distorting these so that they're a bit more random. I'm going to use a white noise texture. Now, this produces just random colors on like a per pixel basis, basically. But colors are just, color data is just 3 channels going from 0 to 1. And the thing is, vector data is also 3 channels, carrying the same basic kind of data. It's just 3 different float variables packaged into one set of data. So, because it goes from 0 to 1, if I say, do some vector math, and I add negative 0.5, now it goes from negative 0.5 to positive 0.5, and then I'll put in a scale, so I can scale the effect. If I put this into the offset, actually, I'm going to really care about the z direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine in here. So this just lets me split the vector into the component float values. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a separate vector, which splits this into the component float values. And then I just put in, I'll just connect the y to the y, x to the x, and that randomly sees these around. I'm going to use the scale to turn that way down because that's way too much. And I can also, what else do I? Yes, we can vary this with its own vector. So if I put in, all right. No, because that'll just reset the vector. Okay. I'll try it with a noise texture and just a regular old noise texture and see which one I like better. It's less random, but there's more control. So let's try that. A little bit. Yeah, I like that a little bit better, right? Because it's less likely for the asteroid bits to cross over each other. And now that I'm looking at it, I think I can actually afford to have a few more. So let's up this max density just a bit. Yeah, I think that's better. But then I also want them to be slightly smaller. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down the max scale here. And then I'm going to turn this down a little bit to restore the shape a little bit. Okay, cool. So that means I've now scattered some random asteroid shapes. And then we're going to give them an outline. And also, we're going to come in here and we're going to start organizing some. So you can just be deleted. You, put you in a frame. We're going to call this grid and subgrid. And then I'm going to put a curved mesh. And let's see, I'm just going to steal this guy here. Hit Control X instead of Control C. You are going to go in here. Why do I suck at this? Okay, so now those have their own outline on them, which can actually be seen by the renderer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add in another material, copy grid, make sure it's not actually the same one, and we're going to make this, say, asteroid. And then we are going to, once again, grab this guy. Oh, not that. There we go. And we're going to make them this color, which was the color I was originally going to make the whole grid, but it was a little bit too reddish. But I like it for the asteroids because they're like it's like a hazard, right? So asteroid, we're going to have it be this color. And then we're going to set material, asteroid, and yeah, there you go. So that is our grid of asteroids. My kind of asteroid field. Does anyone know how long this stream is likely to go? FYI, I can listen to Dapper all day. So I'm putting a minimum of about an hour on this, but we're fast approaching that. So it'll probably end up going about 2 hours or so. So what is the next thing we're going to do? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lower this. Because, so I have this camera set to orthographic projection, which means that there's no perspective applied. So no matter how far down I put this, it doesn't change anything. But I have a good reason for this, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a basically a shape that is the same size as this grid, but that actually has a hole in it, and then out from that grid size shaped hole is going to extend just pure black. So that way, nothing that I'm going to do later can spill over. And you're going to see why I do that. So the next thing we're going to do is we are actually going to create a new object. Well, first, actually, we're going to organize this. Keep this organized so I know what the heck's going on here. So you get put into a frame, and you get called asteroids. Okay. So that way I can actually keep track of what the heck I'm doing, because this is going to get complicated. Okay, so next thing I want is going to be well, I'm going to start off with a cube. Zero says, Blender is amazing, I suck with it. Look, it takes a lot of work to do this, and like, I know what effect I want, but I'm figuring out how to get it as we go, right? I know what my final thing should look like, but I don't know exactly how to get there. So, okay, maybe a cube isn't my best bet. I'm looking at my reference, and I think that what I actually want is a series of planes, each of which is going to be about the same proportion, but they're going to be scaled differently, and they're going to be put along a vertical axis. Okay, so DM Wing, you can make a cube in Blender. Yeah, that's I mean, it's an important first step, right? Okay, so let's add in another grid. This one's going to be a different size to this one, so we don't want to reuse it. 1 by 1. See how this looks. Here. Okay. So we're going to have to translate that up. So we're going to transform geometry. We're just going to push it up on the z-axis. Awesome. Okay. So I want this to be 1 by 1.5, I think. Nope, other way around. 1.5 by 1. Okay. We don't need 3 vertices. We can just go to 2 because this thing isn't going to have any deformation and it isn't going to be turned into a grid. Okay. So, I am still looking at my... Actually, we might turn it into a grid, kind of, but that's going to come later. Okay. This is not too big, so that's good. Okay. Awesome. So these can vary. That's what I want. So now I want bits coming out from each edge. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try a dual mesh. So I'm going to plug this in here. And then I'm going to have another join geometry down here. Okay. So I put instances on points. And then I pick as my instance a curved line. Okay. No, that isn't working. Okay. All right. Let's try something else. Dual mesh isn't going to work for me. All right. So let's do mesh to curve. Okay. Then I'm going to, okay, so that gives me a line at each corner. Good. So I'm going to resample the curve. Resample curve. There we go. All right, and so I want this to be. So normally it's at 4. Do not actually. Is that going to give me what I want? Yeah. Almost. Nope, that's not working. That is annoying. So what I want is a point in the middle of each line, which means I'm probably going to have to actually just put this to 3. Oh, well, I don't want to do that. All right, what we're going to do, see, this is me figuring out, right? How do I actually do this? So I'm going to subdivide the mesh by 1. Okay. So that gets me points in the middle that I don't want, as well as on the corners that I don't want, but I can get rid of those. Okay, so first let's figure out, we're going to add a delete geometry. I can figure out how to do that. Delete geometry, there we go. Okay, so then we're going to say, if equal, so, and we're going to use the index, because every one of those points gets an index value from 0 to however many there are. So we're going to take the index, and then we're going to put a modulo on it. So if mod 2 equals 0, delete the geometry. One, delete it. Why are you not working? Try floored modulo. Now, why would they all? Well, okay, on base 0, yeah. That should be deleting half of them. This is very annoying. Okay. Why is this not working? All right, we'll try something else. I have an idea. We're going to put this to a vector. So we're going to say, no, actually, we're not going to put it to a vector. We're going to put it to a float. I'm going to say position. Position. There we go. And we're going to separate. Here. Okay. So we're going to say if your x position equal to 0, which is basically minus 0.001 to 001, delete. Let's see how that works. Yep. Okay, so that works. So we're gonna put in a or, right? And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shift D this. We're gonna put the y value in, and then we're gonna switch this or here. Okay, so that worked. So basically what I said is, because these points are exactly on the x and y axes locally to the plane, what this means is if a point is between negative 0.001 and positive 0.001 on the x or the y axis, just get rid of it. But I actually want the inverse of that. So what I'm going to add in is a not. And it will say if it is not that, then delete it. And then the other thing I'm going to do is say, okay, if, we're going to add in an or, another or if, let's see, this, take this, or if this added to this is 0, so if x plus y is basically 0, you're also going to get rid of that. That'll get rid of the middle point. And we'll plug that in, and then use that or, boom. Okay, so now we only have the points that I want. Those are the points I want. Jillian says, in our household, the generic answer to why is this not working and similar questions is spite. Okay. All right. So yes, I am doing this the hard way, but there's a reason for this, right? Me doing it this way will mean that I can actually make this a little bit easier to control procedurally, which is what I want to do. All right, so I'm actually going to put this transform geometry through here, which basically means that rather than emanating from the middle, they're just emanating from the top. Okay, cool. So the next thing I need to do is I need to align these along the x and the y axis. All right, so let's give ourselves some more room here. Okay. So what I need to do is align rotation of vector. Okay, we're just going to see if the normal is going to work here. Normal. Let's see. Did that actually work? Okay, yeah, it looked funny because of my angle. It did actually work, and also everyone's very tall all of a sudden. So let's take a look here. Let's just try all these other ones. When in doubt, just try all of them, right? Oh, I do actually think I know the problem. Yeah, the normal on those edges is a little off. Okay, so go back to auto. But then I'm going to try putting a scale node in here. Nope, not instances scale. Vector math scale. Vector math. We're going to put in a scale. And then, no, that's not going to help. It goes negative in the... I'm putting it here. Yes. Okay, so I just basically need to double that. That puts them down. That might not be a problem, though. Because since we have an orthographic view, it doesn't super matter. But I think we're just going to take that and say that it's good enough. Okay. So, the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to make an outline that is going to be with the grid color out of all of this. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take a curve to mesh. Okay, I'm going to add a curved circle. We're going to put that down to like 8 again, because we don't need 32. That's way too much. The computer doesn't need to be bothered with all that. All right, so we're going to reduce this way down. All right, so that'll be a little bit, that in half, 2.5. Yes, all right, so I want it to be a little bit bigger than the thick lines on the grid, but not much more so. Okay, and then the next thing we're also going to do is we're going to do a mesh to, not mesh, not meth, mesh to curve. Yeah, just a curve. Curve to mesh. Same thing here. We're going to have this join here. So now that's created an outline on this box. Okay, we're going to set the material to grid. All right. So now we have this here. Okay. So now I need to make this center bit slightly transparent. All right, so we're going to add in a new material. I'm going to call this transparent aluminum. Aluminum. There we go. Aluminum? I don't know. Because, you know, it's Star Trek. So we're going to put this to transparent. And we're just going to bring this down just a little bit so it's not perfectly transparent. And then we're going to switch over to render view here. We're going to put this to transparent aluminum. Okay. So why is that? Oh, you know what? We're going to actually switch this to an add shader. I'm going to put transparent here. And then I'm going to put in a emission, and it's going to be very... There we go. That's actually what I want. That's the look I'm looking for. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is actually get rid of the grid markings within this box. Now, that is going to require a Boolean. So what I'm going to do, first I'm going to say that this is, we're going to put this in a frame. And we're going to call this tracking box. Okay. Why did it fail? Tracking box. Probably because I hit the F3 instead of F2. Okay. Cool. So we know that this is our grid and subgrid. This is our tracking box. So what we want to do is be able to take some of this and cut out some of this grid with this. So what I am going to do is say, we're going to take this over here. We're going to use an extrude mesh. Okay. So, just so I can see what's going on, I'm going to temporarily in this join here, which we're going to get rid of, but this is just so I can see what I'm actually doing. Oh, wrong in. There we go. Okay, so this is going the wrong direction. I need it to go, let's say -2. Okay, we don't need it to be that far, so there we go. All right, so this is giving us this. Now I'm going to turn on face, is it? Where is it? Face orientation, here we go. Yep, so we're going to flip these. So flip faces, normal. Oh, I'm in the wrong section. Flip faces, here we go. All right, so red basically means that the face is facing the wrong way. It's a whole mathematical thing. All right, so then I'm going to add a join geometry, and we're gonna join back in this original geometry, and then I'm going to do a merge by distance. So what this will give me is an actual solid box. And the reason that's important is because now I can do a mesh boolean, and I can say, okay, subtract this mesh that I just created, this box mesh, from the grid. So I'll do this. Actually, we're gonna get rid of this guy here. And that is the wrong thing that should have gone in there, which is annoying. But hey, what? So when I add this here to this, it should cut out part of the grid directly under my box. Which, yes, it did. Let's see. Take a look at that in rendered mode. All right, so there's some weird artifacting, but the artifacting should be hidden by this border here, which means let's turn off face orientation. Okay, that is what I want. Good, good. Okay. So wherever the box is, and we can actually move it, it will cut out the grid so you don't see the grid there, which is a cool effect. So if I move it, watch here. Yeah. Now, for some reason, the points aren't tracking correctly, which is now annoying. Oh, it's because of the... Now that is a problem. That means I'm not going to be able to move this thing the way I want it to unless I add a transform at the end, which I can just do. And so I would have to add a transform here and link them together, which is not that hard to do. Okay, so yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to put this in a frame here. Hello. There we go. All right, so I'm going to call this cutter. Okay. All right, I hit F2 again, or F3 again. So F2. Okay, there we go. All right, so if I add in a transform, in a transform geometry here and here, and then I'm going to put in a combine XYZ, put it in the transform on both, should be able to move the whole thing. Yep, cool. Okay, that solves that problem of things being weird. Yes, so this is going to be the stream starts soon animation for Star Trek Star Trek Endurance. Because Becca Justiniano said, what is he making? So yeah, this is going to be the 3-minute timer, and I'm just making an animation that'll be interesting within that. So the next thing I need to do, though, is I want to have a random amount of movement that happens. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use a noise texture. We're going to set it to... Yeah, we're going to set it to 4D. I'm going to have this. We're going to separate. Oh, well, actually, first we're going to do vector math. So vector math, there we go. We're once again going to subtract 0.5 from it, or add negative 0.5, which are the same thing, except the add function is slightly faster, so I tend to use it instead of using subtract. Same thing is true for multiply and divide. Multiply is much faster than divide. So generally speaking, if you can get away with it, you should multiply by the reciprocal rather than trying to divide in Blender, if you can. If you're going to want to vary something a lot, and it's a lot easier to vary it by just dividing rather than taking the reciprocal every time, okay, sure. All right. So then this is going to be separated. Separate vector. Then we're going to plug in the x and the y, and then that isn't working, which is really, really annoying. Why aren't you working? We're working before. Is this going to have to be switched with a set position node? It might be, yeah. Didn't mean to do that. Oh, there we go. All right. So let's try a set position node. Set position. This is a little bit less convenient, but hey, we'll see what happens. So we'll try it with the offset. Go offset x y. But then that's not going to work. So let's try it on the position. Oh, this is very annoying. Okay, so we can't use a noise texture to drive this. Great. All right, well, that will mean we will have to do actual math, which is more annoying, but that's okay. So we'll go back to transform geometry. Okay. It's going to be this guy. So we're just going to have to actually drive it directly, which is annoying, but we can do it. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give this a keyframe, and this is a keyframe. I'm going to select it. We're going to go over to the graph editor. The graph editor lets me directly edit keyframes and animation data, right? Okay. So we should say this guy has, why are we not? There we go. All right, so I gave this 2 keyframes on the X and the Y. It doesn't really matter. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to add in a modifier called a noise modifier. And I'm going to bring the scale of this much higher because that slows it down. Rather, also, yeah. I'm going to delete it on this just so I can isolate what is happening. Okay. So yeah, that scale can come down considerably. Okay. So this is going to give us some movement on like the X and the Y axis. Put it at 50. A little high. Let's try 75. Okay, and then we're going to put the strength up. That actually is too high. So let's try it at 5. What I want to do is find a point where it's really at an extreme position and then bring the scale down so that it doesn't actually go past the grid. Okay, so that is pretty good. And then what we're going to do is we're going to copy that, paste it here, but then the strength is going to be too high again. That's going to go way outside. So we're going to bring that strength down. And actually, we need to bring the strength down on this one too, because that's also bringing it too far out that way. Okay. So those strengths look fine. We're going to offset the phase and the depth so that they don't correspond to each other. Alinadol says, the SGI pixel pipeline shows to optimize the reciprocal machine operation over division. Oh. I mean, it seems to be how Blender is optimized too, so that makes sense to me. All right, so let's put this here in All right, we don't need this anymore. Why is it not a number? Why is this? Why you do this to me, Blender? Ah, okay. Oh, wrong one. Graph editor. What did I do? Okay, cool. I don't know what button I pressed. So let's see. Landon says typically the transistor area for division is significantly larger than 1 over x. The Cray did x over y by doing x times 1 over y. SGI purchased Cray, thus that was the way NVIDIA goes. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense then. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. All right, so now we have this guy, and it is doing what we want it to. It is producing an animation that looks kind of like this, right? So when we mount, well, so when the square goes over, it deletes what's underneath in terms of the grid, but not the asteroids. So the asteroids stay intact, and it wanders across the screen, right? Okay, so what I want to do, though, is have a sub section in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and call it, I'm going to rename it to main tracking box. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this bit, and we're going to make it smaller and lower. So I'm going to do join geometry. Do join geometry down here. We're going to add in a new transform geometry. This is going to go here. And this is going to be lower. So you can be able to see a lower one as this one is lower than that. We're also going to shrink it in size so that it's about, I want it to be about, well, let's see. We're going to make it 0.75, which should make it visually seem like it's roughly half this. No, I want it a little bit smaller. Let's try going to 0.5. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this right here and we're going to add it to something else. First, we're going to reduce how effective or how strong the effect is. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this information here, and we are going to, it's going to duplicate it. Nope, that's not going to keep the keyframe information. Okay, that's cool. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to add in a math nodes. So we're going to just take math. What we're going to do is we're going to multiply. Take two of these, and we're going to multiply by 0.5, which is the default value anyway. We're going to multiply both of these numbers by 0.5, right? And then, let's see. We're going to put a combine here. All right, so this will vary. If I just plug these straight in, right? This will vary by half as much as the other one does. Okay. So as you can see, it's copying the same motion, but only by about half as much, which is actually not quite enough. So I need this to be times, let's say, 0.7. Oh, it's still going out. Do I care that much if it goes out at all? Maybe. I'm going to scrub through the timeline here. All right, so yeah, it goes out a little bit. But I don't know that I care that much. You know what I might do is actually just have it... Yeah, we're just going to get rid of the multiplies. We're just going to have it follow directly. So right now, it should keep the same transform. Yeah, but it's offset slightly because it's lower. Okay. Actually, we're going to raise a little bit. So... All right. Where are you going? Okay. Yeah, I think I actually do like that. That's going to work. Okay. But then the other thing we want to do is we want to give it a little bit of its own movement, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to just duplicate this guy. Come down here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in some more math nodes. And we're just going to add a tiny little bit each one based on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to separate this vector out again. Actually, it doesn't really matter. Just do it directly in here. All right, so we're going to set these to 0. That's where we want it to center around. Okay. So I'm going to put I to insert a keyframe on each of these. Then I'm going to click here. We're going to do another modifier. So we're just going to paste the modifier, but we're going to turn the strength down to like 0.5. So now it's got a little bit of its own randomness in the motion. And we're going to offset the phase a different direction so that the why did you okay. So yeah, we offset that phase. We're going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to copy this one just so it's less work. So we're going to go in here, paste this modifier, and then set the phase somewhere else. Okay, so now it looks like we have this guy who is hunting through this. Get like a more accurate read on it. Awesome. Okay. So now that does go outside a little bit. What do we want to do about that? Here it has gone out a bit. So if I take the strength and bring it down, oh, that's negative though. You know what? I think what we're going to do about it is just not worry about it. That's what we're going to do about it. We're just not going to worry about that. That's just a thing that can happen, and that's okay. All right. But the thing that I do want to have happen is I don't want any of this, of the smaller one, spilling out over the bigger one, which means we're probably going to need more mesh booleans, which is fine. That's not a big deal. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to make some changes here. So let's organize this a little bit better. You over here. This stuff. Stop it. Okay. So this stuff is going to be, we're going to call this the secondary tracking box. This in a frame. We'll call this secondary tracking box. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I want to be able to use the Boolean from this to cut out this guy. So what I'm just going to try to just do it straight up. Just do it. We'll see what happens. It might not work. Why aren't you able to go inside of this? Okay. Mesh. Boolean. There we go. All right, what is this warning here? Instances in input geometry are ignored. Oh, okay, yeah. So, yeah, we need to realize instances then. Okay. Need to realize those instances. I also need to turn on fill caps here. We're gonna turn on fill caps so that these are actually contained meshes, because if you leave an opening, Blender isn't sure like which way the outside and inside work. So yeah, it can be a little bit weird that way. All right, so we're going to take this, and we're going to just say that this is going to be what we're subtracting from our mesh. And it didn't work. That's because it's the wrong thing. We're going to not do that. That's perfectly explainable as to why that didn't work. Come in and that. What we really need is this guy, because that's what's going into our other mesh boolean. That didn't work very well either. Let's see what happens if intersect. Nope. Oh. Right. Okay. So, all right. First, we're gonna. Nope. Work. That is gonna work. That's gonna work perfectly. Okay. So, oh no, it's not quite gonna. It'll work well enough, I think. We're gonna have to fix it later. All right. So yeah, that's giving us what we want there. Which is good. Now I need to push this up and see what is being weird about this. Okay. So you there going to be here going. That didn't. Okay, why is that happening? Jillian says the patients do this while he's able to watch creationism videos without commentary. That is actually something I might have done in the past, or if I just weren't here right now. Okay, so why are you? Oh, I need to put the transform geometry. Okay, yeah. So I need to put this here. There we go. That fixes it. It probably causes some overlapping geometry problems, but this is a pretty simple scene anyway. So there we go. Okay, so now the little window only appears when it's inside the bigger window. And I'm also going to extend how long these lines are, because we're going to erase the lines later, but I want them so that they always extend past, the little box always has lines that extend all the way past, right? So the quick way to do that, just to find the line these are based on and say, be longer now. Okay, cool. So this whole thing is going to go to a little bit lower. Okay. So now we have the problem where they're extending too far out, and that's where we're going to get the sort of like blocker that's just going to simply block this out with just pure black. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to grab the original grid. All right. So this grid here, we are going to put something up here. Put a reroute. Okay. These two here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to now extrude that. So we're going to extrude mesh. Oh, I'm going to put a new join geometry because this is getting complicated down there. I'm going to put you over here so I can visually do this. Boom. All right. So that is our grid originally. Now, does this end out? Yeah, okay. So what that means is I'm going to have to increase the size of this grid by that scale, but that's, you know what, I'm not gonna try to do that mathematically. I'm just gonna eyeball it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put in a transform geometry. We're just gonna scale it up on the X and the Y a little bit, just so it visually is fine. Put in 1.0, oh, 100, 1 point, there we go. A little bit longer. Let's try putting a 5 at the end. Nope. Let's try turning it to a 9. Okay, let's try putting a 5 at the end of that. And that's almost it. Try putting a 6. 8. There we go. That's fine. All right. So, let's see. Other thing is, I don't want this to actually go out, up and down. I just want it to be 0 because we're going to do some fancy stuff later. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to push this up above anything else that's here. So let's just go to this. Oh, back on. All right. So you can go down like, okay. Then we're going to put a scale elements. And I'm going to say only scale the top. Then we're going to scale the top out here. And let's see. We're also going to do edges. Oh, I don't need this to have as many. Yeah, okay, so we're not actually going to use the same mesh. We're going to use a slightly different one because I don't want all these extra vertices in here. So that's fine. Just copy it. There we go. Let's see. Who are going to be edges? Yep, there we go. Okay. Awesome. So what we're going to then do is we're going to delete the center face. So I'm just going to do delete geometry. Okay, and we're going to say delete face if the index equal to some number, which is just going to happen to be 0, conveniently. Okay, so this looks terrible, but that's okay because we have a reason for this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a new material, and we don't have one for this, so we're just going to call this black. It's going to be an emission, but the emission is going to be strength 0, and it's just going to be color 0, so it's just as black as we can make it. And then we're going to put in a set material, and it's going to be black. So now, what's going to happen is this line that is coming out of each of these boxes, it's going to extend past this, or in reality, right? Like, see, it does do it. But because we have an orthographic mode, and because we size this to be basically just the size of this grid, we can't see it. So it doesn't exist. So that's good. So now if we play this, it's low res and it's kind of janky, but we can see the effect, right? So that is how we are faking this computer graphics display thing. So we have the grid that disappears. We got the 2 little tracking boxes in there. Excellent. That is what I wanted. Okay. We can also move it if we want to. So reposition. So that is fair. Actually, I do want to reposition a little bit on the y-axis. Okay, so in summary, I'm gonna call this blocker. So let's see. Call you. Oh, my control key was pressed down. Okay. We're gonna call you blocker. Okay. So this whole crazy thing produces that animation. So now you've seen the whole process behind me trying desperately to figure out how to make this work the way I want it to look. I think it looks pretty cool. What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat if you like it, because you know, I don't know how these things are. Okay, so the next thing is I want to make this. There's this LCARS element where there's like numbers from like some number to another number, and they're broken up as if it's some kind of like scale. And I want to put that on either side of this so that it looks like you're tracking something that has some numbers up there. Now, what those numbers are, it's all just arbitrary, right? Like none of this actually means anything. But yeah, I want to add that element in. Now, I don't necessarily want to use a whole bunch of geometry nodes. That might be annoying, but I might. The other thing I want is a timer. So let's actually work on that. That might be an easier. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to pull in a timer from a previous animation. So the first, let's set this to 30 FPS is about what I want. So I want this to be a 3-minute animation and then some. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say it's like going to be a 3-minute and 30-second animation. So the first I'm going to do 3 minutes times 60 times 30 plus 30 seconds times 30 frames per second. That means that this animation is going to go 6,300 frames, which is fine. That's what's going to happen. And one of the nice things about using the noise on this is that this animation here never actually is going to repeat. This is always going to move around and be different. So that's fun. and I could run it infinitely. And basically, while it might take the same position here or there, it will never really have the exact same like trajectory and velocity and whatnot. So, all right. So next, well, first we're going to save because we have not done that yet. And Blender does take auto saves, but like, do I trust it? Not really. Lenny Knowles says, please consider clicking the like button as it helps Top Hats off and prevents us from being Bilboed. Well, because this is just an extra stream, I'm not going to be too angry if you don't, but I would appreciate it. Would really. So yeah. All right. So let's grab. We're going to append from Star Trek. I've got the intermission time. Do I not have that saved as an actual file? Interesting. Yeah, I don't. Stream starts soon. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I don't actually have it. Let's set this. Yeah, set by modification name. Let's go down to the bottom. Maybe I stored it in my Dapper section here. Let's see. Cartoon countdown. I mean, we might just steal it from here. So let's do. Back to where'd you go? Probably gonna be on the cube. Yup. Okay. Good. All right. So we're gonna rotate it. It's gonna change a lot. So here we go. Let's see. English countdown. We're gonna keep that. We're not gonna bother with the Klingon countdown. So you are just gonna go here. Oh no, I can't do that. All right. Well. We're just gonna get rid of you. We're gonna reroute. Put you in here. Okay. All this, we're not gonna have any Klingon text. Get out of here. Reusing stuff is often a good idea. All right. So, this is already going to be a 3-minute timer based on seconds, which means it'll work. Let's see. Yep, we'll stay at 0 as I go down. No, it's going to go negative. Okay, so we are going to need to add in some logic to stop that from happening, but that's easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a switch. Switch if. So we're going to switch this to a string. All right, so switch is going to say if this value is less than 0, so less than, and that's going to be a float. So if this is less than 0, put in 0 colon 0 0. And if not, put in this. Why are you doing this? Oh, right. Because I'm being dumb. There we go. Okay. So that's just a basic logic thing that just says, hey, we're counting down by subtracting here from how many seconds we need, right? So, because we're going to start at 3 minutes, and we're going to get all the way down to 0 0. But that means that after a certain point, these numbers are going to get negative. But once they do get negative, just put in 0 colon 0 0. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about any of this other math, logic, stuff like that. That node. Okay, cool. So the next thing is, this is a bit big and clunky, and I want it to fit in this space here. So this says, is one that says stream start soon? Stream start soon. Yep. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we're going to put a new join node in here. And we're going to, I'm going to just duplicate it a few times. And it's going to say, let's see. I'm going to say transmission. Start soon. So let's see. It's going to be starts. This is going to be soon. Link those up. We're going to ship them down as we go. Or we might just ship them up. That might actually end up easier, just so that we can have this as the baseline of the numbers. Okay. The next thing, we're going to switch the font here. We don't want to impact regular. We want Helvetica Ultra Condensed, because that is the font that I'm using for the LCARS text. It's not exactly the one from the show, but it's basically as close as you can get without, you know, running into trouble. All right, so we're going to take transform geometry, and we're going to, we'll do, all right, so we're going to shift this on the Z-axis because for some reason, nope. Here we go. All right, maybe it's not. Okay. So, yep, shift this a little bit on. Let's put it to 0.7. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to say this is going to be 1.4, so it's the same amount above. Okay, we're going to slightly modify this. Yeah, we want this to be a little bit more there, and then we're going to go up to there. I'm going to shrink you a bit. My hand. Let's see. Transmission starts. And then we'll have to find some thing to put in this area because it's a little empty here. Unless I just want to extend how far down this goes. I could just do that. Let's try. Yeah, let's try that and see how it looks. That'll be simpler. All right, so this will go to 1.4. There we go. And then this 2. Oh, but then there's this is too close. All right, so don't do that. Let's try 1, 2. Okay, so that's going to be pretty good. What we're actually going to do is we're going to do 1, 2. Why is that so high? Weird. E. Weird. Well, let's just try where I like it. So we'll try 0.5. And then U can be 1. Why is that doing that? That is so weird. All right, sure. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to accept it. I'm not going to try to understand why that math doesn't seem to math. I'm just going to go with it. All right. So, this still looks terrible, right? Because this style doesn't match this style. So, the first thing we're going to do is I do not need this curve, any of this stuff. So, you're going away. And you are going to LCARS material. So that will match the text. Okay. So right now we have a 3-minute animation that has a timer that works because I stole the timer from somewhere else. Because boy, am I too lazy to not do that. I don't want to do this logic again. I did it once. I'm going to just keep it the way it is. The only thing I'm going to fix is this little guy here, which is like, hey, when the timer goes negative, just ignore it. Okay. So Oh, that's why, because this is actually transformed. Okay, that all makes sense now, because this is not actually set to 0, 0, 0. Okay, yeah, no, I guess that makes sense. Alright, that does mean I'm going to change where we are on this guy a little bit. Kind of eyeball it. Okay, so the next thing, there's only one more thing, and that is that we are going to change this so that it says something else. Let's see. We're going to go for life sign search. Wow, that's on one line. Search in progress. Oh, we're going to shift it up a little bit so it's more centered. All right, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to change some of this stuff. Okay, so, all right. This is going to be, let's see. We're going to make this GR. Julian Wren is here. And then we're just going to put some random numbers in there. This is going to be JG, because Joshua Geese is here. And then, yeah, well, fine, 15.3. There we go. Let's see, who else is here? Landon Knoll is here. So this is going to become, let's see, LN dash. Okay. Who else do we have here? DM Wing is here. So this will be BW dash whatever that number is. All right, and do we have anyone else who has been in chat? Becca Justiniano. Yes, we do. All right. So I'm just going to leave those. I'm going to change those numbers, I guess. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 20. And then this is going to be that. And we're going to do there we go. So we've got some initials from the people who are watching the stream in here. Yeah, so what this is going to do is I'm going to render this out, and we're unfortunately going to have to render it out at like 4K. The reason for that is because the way I have this set up, there's basically no aliasing. That is so it can render faster, because otherwise this would take a while to render. But to fix that, because I don't want aliasing, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to render it out at 4K, but I'm going to render out the video at 1080. So what that's essentially doing is just doing a super sampling anti-aliasing, like by brute force. All right, so let's take a look at how this looks. Oh, and I still wanted to do those bits on the side. Probably going to do that off air. I might start doing it now though, because if we get to 2 hours, we're not going to keep going. But right now, I am liking this. Move it to here. I have a little bit of room. Can go over here. I'm gonna actually shrink you down a little bit. Here, yeah, okay. Celine Wren says, "For once in my life, middle child issues." Yeah, no, I get that. I'm not a middle child, but like, no, I get that it's a thing. Although now that I think about it, I don't actually want one of these elements I'm thinking of on each side. That's going to be too busy. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab this guy. We're going to shove it over here, and then we're going to put one vertical element here that has a little bit of animation to it. Thank you. I think it looks pretty cool. We're going to do a test render. Let's just see what this looks like in full res. So here you can see what I mean why there's no anti-aliasing, right? Like just none. And that's partly the way I've optimized it to render very quickly. So it's kind of a trade-off. I have plenty of storage on the hard drive that I'm storing this on for the PNGs, and they're going to get deleted eventually anyway. So it's actually easier for me to super sample rather than to try to figure out a good way to anti-alias this in engine. So, yep, we got this. It doesn't extend beyond the borders because of all that fancy Boolean stuff. It erases the grid like I wanted. We've got, some fun. Got everyone's initials here. These numbers change. this number will accurately count down. So we've got most of what I wanted. Pretty well done. So the next thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to be super lazy about what I am going to add next. And rather than try to do it with like fancy geometry notes or something, I'm just going to box model it. Because frankly, I don't really care enough not to. Basically what it comes down to. It would be more precise if I didn't box model it and instead actually went through and like mathematically made everything perfect. But like, holy crap, I don't care that much. But there is one other thing I want to do, which is I actually want to make this a little bit transparent. The subgrid, I want to make it a little transparent so you can see the asteroids through it, and so it's not as bright. Because right now it's a little visually, just a little cluttered, I think. So, and I'm also going to change the color on these guys to more of this yellow color. Okay, so yeah, let's do that. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to go back to geometry nodes. And we're going to say, okay, this guy here, no, asteroids, that's good. Blocker, you're good. Where do we... Grid, okay, here we go. So the main grid is here. So we're going to put something here. We're going to get rid of this. We're going to come here. And we're going to say, okay, this is going to add a new one here. It's going to be grid. But I'm making it a new material, and it's going to be sub grid. I'm going to make sure I have this copied, because I'm going to switch this to an add shader. And this is going to be transparent. So this is going to be subgrid. Okay, so that says transparent right now, and that's fine. I'm going to make it a little bit darker. And then we're going to add in the emission shader back in. I'm going to pop that back in. So now we can just barely see that through here, but I'm going to turn this down so you can see it through a little bit better. Actually, I'm going to turn it down a little. Oh, we need to also switch the render. Actually, a little clear what's going on. Let's see. Yeah, I definitely like that better. I'm gonna fiddle with this. How dark do I want them? Actually, I think they look really good, really dark. Yeah, I'm reasonably happy with that. There, that's still, that might be a little bit too dark, but that I think is a better option there. Okay. And then here we've got grid, and transparent's going to stay the same. So I'm going to add in another one, another material. This is just going to be called search box. Lenny Knoll says, during the main show, the block of small rectangular color indicates near the bottom of the right of the screen, pseudo-random pattern. Block of small rectangular color indicates. I am not sure I know what you are talking about, Landon. I've seen this block pattern show up only one color block and show only one block. I'm gonna set up color blocks. Black set. I'm not sure which part you are talking about, Landon. I'm sorry. Bottom right. Yeah, I am not positive what we're doing here. This is going to be search box. Just changes that. All right, so I'm going to grab the color from here. It's going to be this color. So I need you. Give me your hex code. All right. This. And paste that. All right. Sailor Star Sparrow, see you later. All right. Yeah, that's a little bit better, I think. Yeah. Okay. I do like that. Okay. Yeah, that shows up a little bit better. There's a little bit more contrast there, and it also ties it into the whole color scheme a little bit better, I think. Current show and little blocks in the court. Oh, and the actual Lexington. Yes. Sorry. So yeah, those are just random patterns, and they could turn all black hypothetically if I let the animation go long enough. So what that actually is it is random, and somewhere along the line in like the infinite time that you could possibly watch this, all black is an option, but it's not actually going to happen on the show because it's actually just a looping video. So yeah, you're never actually going to see it all black in the show. But if I made that video like 1,000 hours long, yeah, probably somewhere in there they would go all black. Yep. Yeah. So that's just a visual element that I pulled out of the show from the '60s. That's all that is. Yep. So sorry, Landon, I didn't realize you were talking about in the actual show and not in the live stream here. My bad on that one. Okay, so um, let's see. I have this here. So in a different screen, I am saving something called Elcar's wallpaper. Oh, it's an SVG document. That's annoying. Let's see if I can find something that has this element that I'm looking at that isn't an SVG file, because loading SVGs into Blender turns them into vector file. Which actually, wait, could that work? No, it's going to be too annoying. All right. Well, in that case, what I'll probably just do, I will print screen. I'll open up an image editor. And I'm just going like a 2D image editor. I'm going to pause this so it doesn't keep taking up resources. Okay. So here's GIMP loading up. And of course it went into the other monitor, because why wouldn't it? That's okay. Okay. So I'm just going to zoom in here, and I'm just going to cut this out. So I'm just going to go image, and we're just going to crop to selection. That's all we have. Okay, that's fine. And I'm going to just save that. Oh, no. Save, I'm going to export, sorry. Just export that just like to my desktop or something stupid, and we're just going to call it vertical Elcar's elements. Okay, yep, export, I don't really care. Cool. Okay. I don't care about saving any of those changes. Okay, cool. So we can go back to layout here. What we're going to do is we're going to add in a image as a reference image, which means it can't show up in the final render, even if I forget to turn it off. And then we're going to scale this till I kind of like where it is. Also, I'm also going to put up the opacity a little bit. Turn down the opacity, I should say. Just so I can really see where it is. Okay, so bigger. So what I'm actually going to do is, rather than having this little thing here, I'm actually going to have a little triangle on the other side. And so I am going to increase this until it fills up about the vertical extent of this guy here. Let's see. Maybe a little bit smaller. Maybe I don't want. Okay, yeah. All right. So now I'm just going to start tracing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a plane. I'm going to call this Elcar's vertical element. Okay. And we're just going to start tracing. Over to, well, back over to here. And yeah, we're just going to start tracing. So let's grab this here. Here. Come on, why can't you? Wait, do I have this on a weird rotation? No, I don't. Oh, this is set to normal. That's why. Okay. That would do it. All right, so we're going to rotate this like 45 and then plot it in. We're going to shrink it a bit here. Okay, switch over to points. So this is just the old-fashioned, lazy way of doing this, right? Because this is going to be a relatively small screen element. People aren't really going to see it. They don't care that much that it be like mathematically precise, like whatever. There. Those so that they. All right. Here. Add in one more here, just move that out a little bit. Down. All right. Yeah, that's going to be good enough. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is, I don't want to have to redo all that work. So we're just going to duplicate that, and we're going to do sy minus 1. And we're going to here. Okay. Then we're just going to select these. And I'm going to double check to make sure that face orientation is good. And it's not, which is not surprising. Fix that just so there's no weird shading shenanigans. So that is going to be flip faces. All right. So some of these edges are a little bit jagged, I guess is the word I want to use. So we're just going to select those. What other one did I choose? Okay. Okay. So yeah, we're just going to add in a little bit of extra geometry. We're a little jagged too. All right. You too. Okay, that's a little bit smoother. For some reason, it's like it just feels less noticeable up here, so I just don't care as much. Okay, so that's part of it. So now we switch over to this view here. So I can add in. Let's see. We're gonna start adding some loop cuts in so that we can cut things out later. Actually, you know what? That's not the best way to do this. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put these loop cuts in the center of these. And then later I'm going to bevel each of the loop cuts so that they're all the same width. That's a better option. It's going to keep it more consistent. So basically I'm going to put a loop cut in for each of these vertical cuts. And later I'm going to delete them. Here. And then one here. So then I select all of these loop cuts that we're cutting out. Here and here. And I go in and I bevel these one thing. And then I set this size here so that it's consistent the whole way through. Make sure I'm on face select so I can delete these. This. Go, you. So I'm selecting all these so I can just delete them. Oops, vertices instead of faces. There we go. All right, so now, turn off. Now you can see I have a pretty good approximation of what that looked like. But I don't have these little dangly bits here. We're just going to have to add those in. So that's not going to be too difficult. So this one I'm going to do manually, but the other ones I'm going to do pretty much automatically. So I actually don't need you, so we're going to dissolve edges there. All right, and we're going to do a similar thing where I'm going to bevel these so that they all have about the same width. Well, actually, they'll all have exactly the same width, ideally. You two. We're just going to go down here because you're a weirdo. You can come here, here, here. Who I will push down here. You can come here. You. And whoop, here we go. So select all the ones that are in the middle. Like you, and you, and you. Bevel, you're about the right size. You. We're just going to select, come on, all these faces, and we're just going to extrude them. I don't have these dangly bits here, Dapper Dinosaur 2025. Yeah, I know. I'm easy to quote out of context. What can I say? Okay, and then we're just gonna restrict that to the x-axis. Okay, so that is that element there. Cool. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to assign this a material, and it's just going to be L-Car's Lower Decks theme. So that will give it a color pattern. But I do want this interior bit, the graded bit, to have the same color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in a new thing. Say you guys are going to be this new thing, which is going to just be okay. And actually, I think I want to just make this the classic theme. L-Car's classic theme. Yeah, I like it. So it's giving us a little bit more of like the sort of TNG feel, because I feel like I'm missing a little bit of that like sort of like light purpley, like low saturation purpley color. And I do, however, want to, yeah, like this is the original L-Car's theme, so many freaking colors. So what I do want to do though is I want to change this so that it's not quite so heavily yellow. I like that. All right, so that gets us a little bit of blue, a little bit of purple, some kind of peach here, a little bit of white, like almost like a fleshy tone. Okay, cool. So that just brings a little splash of color in. I like that. Yeah. All right. So the next thing we need to do is add in these numbers. I don't know if I'm just gonna copy. Yeah, you know what? I might just copy them. I mean, what is it like 000 through 070? It's not that big. All right, cool. So I'm gonna add in a text. We're gonna call this or what is the yeah, okay. So we're going to switch the font over to the correct font. The Helvetica Ultra Condensed. A Blender. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to that down until it's about the right size. Okay. Awesome. All right. So here we go. All right, so this is actually going to end up being bluish. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, yeah, this is going to be blue text. I'm going to be super lazy and just say it's that color. Okay. So we're just going to go here. This is going to be 0, 1, 0. Here, this is going to be 0, 2, 0. down here. This is going to be 0, 6, 0. And then we're just going to shift you down here to be 0, 7, 0. Okay, and then we're going to go here. And I'm going to set you to be that color. So you're going to be orange text. And I'm going to just be there. You are 0, 3, 0. Row 4. And 5. Okay. I now no longer need this guy here. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add in a little indicator that's going to go up and down around between this thing here. Okay, so I'm going to go and let's see. Set origin to geometry just to make it nice and centered. Then I'm going to set my cursor to the selected so that when I add in a shape, it's going to follow that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a mesh circle. I'm going to do a weird thing. This is going to come down to 3. Really what I'm adding is a triangle. Okay. So I make that a face, bring it up, give it a material like this. Okay. We're going to shrink this, and then we're going to rotate it here, and then we're, oh wait, I want to rotate it on the actually so I can make sure I get the exact right. What am I actually trying to do? Yes. 60. That's what I want. Okay, yeah, math. That's a thing that I know about. Shut up. All right, we're also going to expand it on this axis so it's actually more like a pointer. Shrink it a little bit. We're going to see how small we need it. That. Up over here. Shrink until you fit pretty well without really interfering with the text. And actually, I'm not going to use Elcar's classic theme. It's just going to be white. So get rid of that. It's going to have one that says white. It's going to be an emission shader. Just going to be white. Okay, cool. Okay, so I want you to start at the same Y location. The Y here is whatever this is, so we're just going to copy it. We're going to paste it here. And then I'm just going to test. Sure, yeah, I can come a little bit a little bit farther. Okay, so we're just going to do something very similar to the how we animated this. So I'm going to hit I to insert a keyframe just so that there is, in fact, a graph to edit. And we're going to put a noise on the Y location. So we're going to add in a noise modifier. Okay, so we're going to put the scale just to 50 for now. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to take a look at how high it and low it ever goes. All right, so this looks like about as high as it gets. We're going to increase that strength so that it comes up here-ish. Okay. All right. That's a little bit fast, so I'm going to change this to 70, see how I like that. Yes. Okay. Awesome. I like that. Okay. So there we go. I mean, that's basically it. Put it into the here so we can only see the this off. And yeah, that is the animation. So what did that take? Just under 2 hours, I think. And I think it's pretty good. What do you guys think? Let me know. Because I am going to hit, I'm going to pause. I'm going to hit Control S on this. And I'm going to render it off air because honestly, rendering it is just boring as hell. There's nothing to look at. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is pretty good. I was thinking maybe I'd change this up, but I just don't care. I like how it is now, and I just don't care to change it. Um, transmission starts soon. We got the timer. We got the cool little scanning. We got the vertical element that doesn't mean anything but sounds cool or looks cool, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. I think this is pretty good. All right. So yeah, let's just do a test render to make sure it actually renders the way and looks the way I want it to. Yeah. I like that. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Hope you all had fun. We only did this because we got to a super chat goal on what was it, Saturday? So, yeah, I think this is going to be pretty neat. Star Trek is full of doesn't really mean anything, but it looks slash sounds cool. Yeah, that's one of the things, right? Um, basically, oh, there's a little misalignment here. All right, we're gonna have to fix this. This is a little bit off. Yeah, basically one of the things that I've learned in trying to produce what essentially comes down to producing a Star Trek show, right? Is that yeah, there's a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff that you're just going to put in there because it kind of seems neat, and there really is not a much better reason than that. It's just, you know what? It just needs to look cool. It doesn't need to mean much. Just needs to be there. How are you? All right, just want to make sure these line up nice and neatly. That's a lot better. Let's see how that looks. If I can't visually see it, then no one else is either. All right, yeah, that's better. Awesome. All right, well, thank you so much everybody for hanging out. Make sure you hit like and hey, I hope to see you on Tuesday for Matt with Maddie. So look forward to that. And this is gonna render here just locally. I'm just gonna put it in a file and then I'll turn it into a video and eventually it looks like Chesh is volunteering to produce Star Trek Endurance. So I'm probably just gonna just start putting all the video files in like Google Docs or something and sharing those with her. And that is the plan. All right. Well, I hope everyone had fun. I'm gonna get out of here, and there's no end credits or anything because this is just art stream. I hope you all had fun. And I don't know, maybe you learned something. I don't know. All right. Bye, everybody.